Welcome, friends, to the Urantia Book Fellowship's monthly podcast, streaming live on Facebook. I'm your host, Paula Thompson, and today I have the great honor and pleasure of being with two longtime evangelists in the Urantia movement and dear friends, David Kantor and Agustin Arellano. Hello, my friends. So good to see you today. And I've just been looking forward to this interview. So, David, I guess we'll go with you first. Augustine, don't hesitate to jump in if you want to say something too. I know you and David are old, long, and dear friends, just as you are with me. I've known David for many years, served with him on the executive committee of the fellowship, worked shoulder to shoulder with him, doing Urantia outreach, and especially through the Urantia Book Fellowship's website, urantiabook.org, which I think David created in 1996, or 97. Correct me if I'm wrong, David. Yeah. You have a long history of reaching out with the Urantia Book, and you've created the fellowship's website is a veritable resource library of Urantian scholarship, and invaluable in that way. So thank you so much for the many, many years, at least 20 plus years you put in working on that site and collecting wonderful resources and articles and scholarship from various places, keeping history. You've just done such a marvelous job, David. I can't say enough. About you, and you're, enough good, that is, and so I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with your Urantia Book.
Well, that's a huge frontier. The present situation is that I'm working on this film. It's the second film that I've worked on. And before I go any further, I do want to thank the Second Miler Grant Committee. The grant they gave us enabled me to pay a commercial artist to do some work. It's going to really enhance the film a lot. I had a lot of background in my professional life and in the Urantia world with computer graphics programming, photography, multimedia production. In the 1980s, I went to Israel and created a catalog of photos of sites that are mentioned in part 4. By year 2000, semi-professional video equipment was becoming more compact and coming down in price so that low budget filmmaking could be done. I decided to produce 2 films. The first would be to introduce people to the Jesus of the Urantia Book. The book says that's the most important thing, so I thought we'll do that first. This was reimagining Jesus, shot on location in Israel and Jordan with Eric Koch, completed after 5 years and released on Amazon Prime Video in 2014, and still getting steady traffic on Amazon today. And the second film would be an introduction to the book itself. I started work on this in 2016, and I like to believe it's about 80% complete.
Wonderful. What do you, I want to clarify the Second Miler Grant is a grant offered by the Urantia Book Fellowship for wonderful grassroots projects like the one David is talking about today. What do you hope to achieve with your film, David?
Well, I have 2 primary goals for the film. The first is to draw the attention of progressive Christian clergy and lay leaders to the Urantia Book by addressing their concerns about the present crisis in Christianity. And the second is to help readers understand the evolutionary context in which the revelation appears. The great work which Matthew Block has done provides a foundation for a deeper exploration of the material aspects of the revelation. The film reviews some of the evolutionary background from which Matthew's concept sources constructed their worldviews and came up with their insights. And these were streams of thought originating in the outworking of the 4th epical revelation.
So tell us a little more about the film. I mean, I've been involved from the beginning with both of these films, and I know how much work you've put in, and uh, endless hours of work. And so, tell us a little bit about it. What is it
Okay.
about this film?
Well, I appreciate your patience and everyone else's patience. It's just a long process. It's a huge project, and I'm afraid to hype it too much and create expectations that don't get met. My goal is to have the film exceed any expectations, and it's so multifaceted that it's hard to characterize. It celebrates the centuries of relentless work by the Spirit of Truth to ignite the Master's religion of personal spiritual experience. It contains and is built around biographies of some of the spirit led men and women whose lives have catalyzed spiritual progress over the last 2,000 years. It could be characterized as a history of the evolution of the religion of personal spiritual experience. And another thread running through there is a history of spiritual reform movements. I think readers are going to find it very interesting and very enlightening to see how spiritual reform movements have progressed over the centuries. And the film itself is constructed around 7 scenes. Each one highlights a specific stage in the outworking of the fourth epical revelation. And each scene ends with a 90 to 120-second visual soliloquy with some music to allow the film to breathe, have some breathing room between conceptual narrative and worshipful stimulus. You know, it's my personal effort to create illusions which foreshadow a higher universe reality and crystallize the emotions of time into the thought of eternity. It's my personal quest to try to understand how film can be exploited as a medium for revelation.
Mm.
You know, as a filmmaker, you're right there in the viewer's mind with their ideas, ideals, insights, spirit strivings, their adjuster, the spirit of truth. And it's not so much a challenge of putting information into that mind as it is to how can you facilitate that interior environment so the adjuster and spirit of truth can work. And I've benefited from a study of the films and philosophical writings of a couple of filmmakers who have attempted to do just that.
Well, I know you to be a scholar of the Bible, and I think it would be really helpful if you would give us a bit of your religious background. How what was your religion as
Oh,
a
yeah. Well, my family is in deep. I mean, it goes back. I have a great uncle who came over very early to do missionary work with lumberjacks in Minnesota.
wow.
It's just kind of been in the family. My grandfather was on the board of directors for the African Inland Mission for almost 30 years. I grew up around this missionary consciousness. My mother's brother and his wife were medical doctors, and they had a medical clinic on a houseboat that went up and down the Amazon. That was their life work. And my own parents, after the war, went to California to work among migrant farm laborers. So, I've just been immersed in this. But the ironic thing is that I so resented that fundamentalist Christian background, totally revolted against it. And then when I got the Urantia book, I had to do make some adjustments there. But all is well.
Yay. Well, thanks. I just learned some things about you I didn't know, and I always appreciate that. And can you tell me, as you've researched this film, and I know you've spent hours and hours and hours researching Christian history, what did you learn that really surprised you? I know you probably have had many great epiphanies around the research you've done, but
Well, what really surprised me was towards the end of the process here, I was working on the Jesus stuff, and I left this stuff for the end. I thought, oh, I know all about the quest for the historical Jesus. I'll just, put that in place. Well, when I started working on it, I was absolutely shocked at what I found. And it really opened up my mind to the real crisis of Christianity and why we have the Urantia book. It goes, let's give a little bit of background here. I mentioned this crisis of Christianity. And the crisis of Christianity isn't just people leaving the church, it's people leaving the Bible. In the late 15th century, studies of newly accessible Greek manuscripts revealed hundreds of errors in the Latin Vulgate Bible, which had been Christianity's sacred text for 1,000 years. A number of the church's doctrines turned out to be based on translation errors from the 4th century. The effort to sort out these discrepancies just added to the confusion and conflict being generated by the Reformation, which was going on at the same time. Scientific discoveries were adding to uncertainty about the Bible's credibility. It was just becoming a piece of ancient literature. We can view the breakdown of biblical credibility as kind of starting at the outer edges with the scientific stuff. Joshua didn't really get the sun to stop as it moved across the sky. And the breakdown continued into the historical stuff. Pretty soon the historical stuff was no longer really valid. And things just closed in on the Gospels themselves. Studies of the early Gospel fragments had revealed deletions, additions, and editing to reflect changing beliefs in the early church. And in addition to this, Enlightenment thought was rejecting anything supernatural. So, and that's kind of a long way of approaching an answer to your question, but what I found was that during the 18th and 19th century, some of the best minds on the planet struggled to salvage the human Jesus from the accumulated dogma. They met with failure. The story was no longer historically credible. But the effect wasn't limited to scholars, and this is something that really surprised me. Between 1860 and 1920, all these scholars have just turned the Jesus story into nothing. During that period of time, more than 60,000 versions of the life of Jesus were written and published by ministers, teachers, philosophers, novelists, and amateur writers. There was an insatiable appetite for stories about Jesus. People were desperate for a believable explanation of the incarnation. By the 20th century, all that was left was the concept of Jesus and the spirit of truth valiantly struggling for expression. So the crisis in Christianity that I've tried to address in the film revolves around the fact that civilizations die when their unifying stories collapse. The midwayers tell us that Western civilization is disintegrating, and it's the Jesus story which has been the integrator, the primary source of moral and ethical values, literally the foundation of Western civilization. The great crisis of Christianity is the loss of its story. In the 21st century, the human Jesus has vanished. Catholicism has its mystical suffering savior. Progressive Christianity views the Gospels as myths in the Joseph Campbell sense, as stories that are bearers of important values and meanings. Evangelicalism has largely replaced the human Jesus of the fourth epical revelation, or the human Jesus, with the risen and glorified Christ. So the Jesus of the fifth epical revelation is desperately needed. The very reality of the fourth epical revelation is being challenged by the forces of secularism and modernity. The whole story of the incarnation is at risk.
Wow.
I've heard you speak on this before, and I feel your intense drive to rectify these situations. And of course, we know that the Urantia book and part 4 of the Urantia book has the most amazing and sublime story of Jesus ever told. And I love to tell people it's not some hip new age Jesus. It's that went to India and did this, like the Aquarian Gospels or whatever. Not to put that down, but it is the same Jesus we've always had, and it builds on him to such a degree that we could say we really do now know the human Jesus. And we do see his real struggles. And if nothing else, it gives us back the human Jesus, not just the divine Jesus, which, the divine Jesus is wonderful, but not really approachable by humans like us. But when we see his life episodes, we see how he reacted to everyday situations, how he raised his mother's family, how he trained his apostles, his private ministry as he traveled through the Mediterranean. These things are priceless. And this really is a story that humanity and Western civilization and all of humanity could hold on to. So bravo for, reimagining Jesus did that for me. It gave me, more than ever, it gave me Jesus the strategist, Jesus the general, and I really loved that about reimagining. So thank you for doing that. And I know you said you want to reach Christian clergy and lay leadership. So what's your plan for doing that? How do you plan to reach them with this?
Well, my basic assumption is that our ability to create interest in the Urantia book depends on how relevant we make it to the people that we're addressing. I've studied this audience, this market. I know it. The film not only acknowledges their issues, it illuminates their evolution and shows how we got to the present impasse. I try to follow a guideline that says if you want to communicate something to people, make sure that 80% of what you tell them consists of things they already know and believe to be true. And the film does this while clearly addressing their core concerns and directing them to the Urantia book. I don't do a hard sell on the book. I simply make a case for why they need to investigate it.
I know you've reached out to many Christian ministers already, and you've actually personally gone to churches. You go in and make it, you go in and take pictures and take video, and you talk to clergy and you become friends with them. So, there's a real personal touch there. Is there a way to reach them directly through some vehicle? Just mailings or something? How will they know? Do you think they'll just, the word will get out? It'll be word of mouth?
I don't think it'll be word of mouth. In the back of my mind right now, I'm trying to get the film finished, but in the back of my mind, I have kind of some approaches to marketing of it. One of the things that I would really like to do, if that could happen, you spent so many years with booths at different venues, and I thought that it'd be nice to have a booth that would go to some of the conventions of progressive Christian leadership. I've gone to a couple of them myself, and they have booth areas. They've got their bookstores. So that would be a way to have the book available and be able to talk to these folks and introduce it to them. There are things that can be done online as well, but I've got to finish the film, and then I'll deal with structuring the outreach. One of the disappointments with Reimagining Jesus, I thought, well, I'll make this, and we produced a couple thousand DVDs and distribute them. I thought this will be great for people to take and give to their ministers and introduce them to the book, but none of that happened. No one seemed to be interested. So I'm not sure how that marketing part goes. You know?
Well, getting it on Amazon, I think it's brilliant. And I so appreciate that because it's reaching people and you have no idea how many people it might be reaching. And, you know,
Right.
how many parishioners are sharing it with their clergy or, you just never know. And so
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that. I'm so glad you did that. And I assume this new film will be, Amazon will be open to carrying it too, that you already
Oh
have it.
yeah. Amazon's ready to go when it's done, and I'm going to hire an agent to pitch it to a number of the other streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, some of these other services, and we'll get it out there. It's got my biggest struggle right now is to come up with a title because the title is so important for
Yeah.
keywords for searches. It'll happen.
I know that you seem to have tapped a sweet spot with the Urantia movement. It seems like more and more we're leaning towards media, and Augustine will be talking about his media adventures too. And it's, of course, about time that we went down this road, and I thank you for pioneering it. But I know a lot of Urantia book readers have a problem with us an over association, let's say, of the Urantia book to Christianity. And I wonder how you deal with that or what you tell them when they say, well, we're not supposed to be associated with any world religion per se.
Yeah. Um, I appreciate the issue. The Urantia book is for the entire planet. But if you look at how the other epical revelations have happened, the revelation has come to some cultural group who's then been instructed to take it to the rest of the world. And it almost needs to be delivered in a cultural context so that there's detail of meaning. Um, Also, there's a big difference between being associated with and ministering to. The film is dedicated to the seraphim of the churches and the success of their work. These are the angels concerned with the safe transit of moral values from one epoch to another, a matter which should be of great concern in the present situation of our culture. My fondest hope is that it will be of assistance to them. We're the foot soldiers on the ground. We can manipulate material reality in ways that they can't. You know,
Right.
Maybe an introductory film, especially written to introduce the revelation to their churches, might help them. You know, but there's more to this. The revelation is constructed upon the highest conceptual achievements resulting from the outworking of the fourth epical revelation, and that's Christian ethics, cosmology, the life and teachings of Jesus. You know, consider, among other things, Christianity is the only religion that cares anything about a trinity, let alone having a complex Trinitarian cosmology. It's the only religion with a focus on the spiritual transformation of the world. All other religions focus on personal salvation. It's the only religion in which the approach to God is through an intimate personal relationship.
Mm.
And there's a matter of a 700-page biography of Jesus, which clears up centuries of confusion about the incarnation within Christendom. You know,
Right.
Again, appreciating the difference between being associated with and ministering to. It's the ministering to part that we're called to attend to. So, from my point of view, trying to interest people in reading the book who are turned off by a mention of Jesus as a lost cause, you might as well be trying to sell steak sauce to vegetarians, hoping they don't read the label before you get your money.
Well, I tend to agree with you, but only because Jesus is mentioned within the first, 15 pages of the book. And then throughout, over and over again, we get a vision of who Jesus is cosmically before he came to this world, who he was, what he did, how he operated, his position in the universe of universes. I mean, it, that he's a descending son. And what's interesting to me is the nomenclature of the book is speaking to a religion. And what other religion talks about Adam and Eve, talks about angels, talks about Jesus Christ, talks about God the Father? you know, in these terms. The terminology really shows that they were building on a platform. They were building on something that needed to be built on. And they chose, for all of its shortcomings, Christianity and the Judeo-Christian tradition, especially. So, and they built on it. They expanded it exquisitely. So, at the very least, we should reach out to Judeo-Christianity. We should.
A
And
third
not,
of the people on the planet are Christians.
right. We shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't be afraid to do that. So yeah, well, let me ask you this, David. You're gonna is there anything else before we switch over to Auguste, that you would like to add? And about distribution, about maybe perhaps premiering it at a Urantia event. I wish you could premiere it at the Parliament of the World's Religions. I think it would be perfect for a venue like that. That's my profound hope that this film will get the attention, and reimagining too will get the attention they deserve.
Yeah.
They're quality pieces of work.
Well, I don't have anything else to add other than just to thank the Second Miler Grant Committee again, and also to thank people who are helping me with the film. I have a great team of technical consultants, ministers and theologians who are readers of the Urantia book, people who do proofreading, our financial support background. Everything is there. It's just absolutely wonderful. And I'm really grateful. Let me just close with a quote. To paraphrase 175:21, the church is only the larval stage of the thwarted spiritual kingdom. It is the cocoon in which the kingdom of Jesus concept now slumbers. Don't you suppose it's the purpose of the revelation to begin awakening that mighty chrysalis? I do.
I do too. That's what I suppose with all my heart. And thank you, David, so much
It's
for.
my pleasure. Thank you, Paul. I'm looking forward to what Augustine has to say. I had the pleasure of going to a lot of the first gatherings of readers in Latin America with Augustine. We had some great trips back in the day.
I have so many fond memories of both of you. So, Augustine, welcome to the show, Agustin Arellano. I'm so glad you're here with us today. To me, you both are legendary, and you both are personal heroes of mine. And I want to share a little personal story about Augustine, because Augustine, you're the quintessential servant leader. And when we went to the parliament in Barcelona, Spain, Augustine was our guy on the ground who spoke Spanish. And he was, one of the only ones who did. And so we were constantly grabbing him the whole time. Augustine, tell me what they're saying. Augustine, can you call this guy and tell him we need our book? Augustine this, Augustine that. Poor Augustine, we ran him absolutely ragged. And by the end, and Augustine and I were both ragged by the end of the parliament. And my brother came up to me with a little gift for me. After all that we'd been through, he had a gift for me, and I just broke into tears. I couldn't believe this man who had just given us endless service for the last 5 days, never stopping, never shirking any responsibility or any willingness to help us solve all of our problems, and our language problems especially. And now he was giving me a gift. I told him, God, I should be giving you a gift. You deserve a medal or something. You deserve an Oscar, Augustine, for your wonderful performance these many years. Not to mention that when I first met Augustine, I was in Senior Frogs in Mexico with Glenn, and we were dancing the conga line or something. And here's Augustine coming to get books. I was on a mission to bring him Spanish books, and he very politely took the books and exited Senior Frogs. So you have my undying respect, brother, and you both are modern apostles, I think, and truly, by their fruits you shall know them. So give us a little background, Augustine, on who you are and what brings you to the Rancher book and such excellent service around it.
Well, I would like to start with the waiver because there's a lot of people listening and don't understanding. Eventually, we're going to translate it and we're going to show it in Urantia TV with subtitles or doubled in Spanish. So, así que los que están escuchando y no entienden nada, esperen. Va a estar en español, va a estar en Urantia TV, pero pues esta es una transmisión en vivo y es una hora, así que no hay tiempo para hacer todo ese esfuerzo de traducción. Well, I started in the 70s going to this Academy for Future Science with Jim Hertak. I was a translator. And while I was really interested in all these stories in the book of knowledge about many universes, about a hierarchy that encompasses the order of Melchizedek, the order of Enoch, and the Michaels, which was something like science fiction. I was consumer of science fiction at the time, and well, I really got into it. As translator, we got a little team. We were 3 people, then we got 4, up to 5. One of the guys went to visit Jim Hertak in California, and when he came back, he told us, this guy has a pillow book. He never lets it off, and it's the Rancher book. I went inside and I saw some pages, and it was just like the book he's doing. So we tried to get the book. It was very difficult at the time. We wrote the foundation and we couldn't get it. So at the time I was a tour guide, and in one of the tours that took 12 hours, I had time to talk a lot. So we went to this church in El Rosario, about 42 miles south of Mazatlan, where there was a candle, a big candle in the middle, and 7 candles around it. So I make up the story that it was a representation of the 7 super universes and this and that. And I did it for a long time. But one time, this lady says, "Where do you get this story?" And I said, "Well, there is this Urantia book. I got some Xerox, but it's only 1 paper, and it says about that." And it says, "Well, I had the book for you. I brought it for you." And I was like, "What?" And it was a woman from Minnesota, Barbara Ann Plain. I never saw her again. She was coming with her husband. She was a registered nurse. And well, she brought the book. So we make a big party and started a group on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday from 7, sometimes to 2 a.m. We start reading because there were only 2 guys reading English in the group. And I was the youngest. I was 17 and the oldest was 80. And so we started translating. It took like 5 years, and it was a typewriter, old typewriter with 5 copies. And it was not very good translation, but it make the day. People just didn't want to get up and go. Then we decided to start Mondays and Wednesdays. So we limit to 3 hours.
Wow.
Then we started Friday because people just didn't want to go. And I was living so far, at that time there was nothing, taxis or buses. I should go walking. So we decided just 3 hours from 7 to 10. And so we read the book in about 3 years.
Wow.
And then
you were 17. You were
I was-
17 when you first found the book.
yes.
Wow. That's wonderful.
And I was the only young people. All were senior citizens. So eventually start coming younger people in about a year. Then we thought, well, we need to have a young people group. So the first Jaya was in 85 in July. And we started with 5 people. Eventually we were 60, but that was when we separated from the old people because most of the older people went to sleep during the reading, and they say, "Don't worry, my subliminal mind is getting everything." But
I
it was,
read something like that.
yeah, but it was fun, all these years. Then we started using the cottage of the Hertex in Sierra Madre, and we went on the weekends for a couple days just to read and meditate about something special with topics. So we started something like regional meetings because I started traveling to Mexico City, to Guadalajara, to Tepic, and Durango was the first city we ever visited. So
Mm.
we start growing at that time. That was in '85. In 10 years, we grow enough to make an association. And that was the first, it was called Getza. That was in native tongue of Oaxaca. That means brotherhood, Getza.
Mm.
And it was for many years. But then in the 2000s, we make an association, 593, and then we changed the name to Orvonton Asociación Civil. And this civil group started making more activities like book fairs, booths of different expos, and well, we did about 5,000 in 20 years.
So you were no doubt very, very anxious for the Spanish translation to
Yes.
come on board.
That was when we started growing. From '95 to 2005, that was the time when it grew because in English was difficult. You were depending on someone who reads it. But now
Right.
in Spanish, in '93 when it started, it was too expensive, like $60 per copy. But in '95, it was 50. So this difference, $10, make it happen. And in 2000 to 2003, it was the bestseller in Mexico, amongst the 10 most sold books in Mexico City.
So your personal experience with the book, apparently it grabbed you, and it seems to me like it grabs many, many people of Latin origin. They just
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
open-hearted and they just, I've seen them viscerally react to it. You'll read something and they'll just grab their heart like, oh, it just went right in, and it's so gratifying to see that. And it's actually fairly easy to share the Urantia book with people in Spanish-speaking countries because they're more open to it. But is that, what makes you such a powerful evangel for the Urantia book? What you seem to burn with a desire to share it with everybody, and I can totally relate, and I know David can too. But what is it about the book that it most touches you and wants you to spread it the way you do?
It was so difficult to get the book. It took me 7 years to get the whole book. So one of my goals was to make it easy for people to get it.
Mm.
Um, and it has gone a lot of places I never imagined. For example, there is this man who was one of the pioneers of the group in Mazatlan, Francisco Reinaga. He was diaconus in the Catholic Church, and he read the book for 20 years every Sunday in the Catholic community. He never said it was a Urantia book. Then the bishop dies, and a new bishop comes, and this bishop knew about the Urantia book, so he cast out a friend of the group. But for 20 years, the book was read, and the only thing Pancho said was, "This is the word of Jesus," and then he started reading the fourth part for 20
Wow.
years. So the book has gone to many priests, many monks. For example, in the places we do our meetings, the gatherings are made in the monastery of Benedictine monks, and we used to have a group that the whole all the monks were reading the book.
Wow.
So there's a lot of people who got it. When we got the first time reimagining Jesus, we started projecting in regular movies. We rented the place for one show, and we used to go to radio shows to give the tickets. You have to answer a question, and then you get the free pass. So we did it. Usually, we were in a book fair or something, so people get related to. So it was the best way to share it. But inside the monasteries is different because they don't go out. So when we projected in the monasteries, they really got into it. They really like it, you know.
So reimagining has Spanish subtitles then, obviously.
No, it's double in into
Oh,
Spanish. Yeah,
oh, wow, great. Well,
yeah,
yeah, that makes sense because it's just a voiceover, so it would be fairly easy to dub it then.
yeah. Subtitles in Portuguese, but
Okay.
the Spanish is doubled. Yeah, it's so it's It's really easy, and because it doesn't have a lock, so people can copy. So of every 1,000 copies, at least 5,000 copies were made, at least.
So I know when you first started your evangelism with the Urantia book, probably the word Urantia was like most of us have encountered, where people go, "Who? What?" But now, what are you seeing now in terms of recognition of that word and acceptance of it?
Well, since it was a bestseller in the early 2020s, um, a lot of people knew about it. We went to so many radio shows. People already know. But my biggest surprise ever was in the book fair in Cuba. The
Wow.
most of the people, the 80% of the people visiting the stand already had the book. They downloaded from the web. So
Wow.
they came to ask stuff, They already knew the book. So I was really surprised, And also we had the Jewish community in Cuba very interested. I talked to Rabbi Solomon Griskin about the book, and I gave books for the community. So we make a different reach out to Cuba, different from many other countries, because of the lack of money to buy the book. Um, we have given maybe 300 books in Cuba, and but the most of people already had the PDF. The most people read it, and the questions they did were different from people from other countries. Maybe because they are so into reading that their reading skills make them go deeper and make difficult questions about the book.
I have to put in a plug for the fellowship's Pipeline of Light right here, because it happened quite organically based on what you and other Spanish speaking readers told us about how difficult the book was to get in Spanish speaking countries. And I remember the first experience was at the Snowmass conference in 1990, when we passed around a sack to give money to an Estonian who was there so that he could go home and purchase books. They were having the same problem. The book was very difficult for them to get, and of course they just had English. That was the only option. But even the Spanish book has been very, very expensive, and it had come to our attention that it could be a whole month's salary for somebody just to purchase the book, and that multiple people were sharing one book. Like, I heard there was a group of 100 people sharing one book, and they would meet together and read it together, but they couldn't study it themselves because they didn't have it to study. And so we created the Pipeline of Light to solve that problem. And the Pipeline of Light is a program that actually tries to keep books flowing to people like Augustine, who always has his finger on the pulse of the need of Spanish-speaking readers of the Urantia book. And so I know the Pipeline has given you hundreds of books to distribute, and I personally thank you for schlepping those books all over the world to places like Cuba. And gosh, I think you've probably been all over the whole world, but especially the Southern Hemisphere.
Yes, I just missed Belize and Paraguay. All the other places I've been, and well, the prices sometimes go to $130 per book.
Wow.
So that's a lot. It's to have the month salary someone in Ecuador. So the first thing was to download the price, to talk to the booksellers, and really get to a reasonable price, because it's too expensive. It's very elitistic for the most of people, for the most of societies. But right now, for example, when we started sending to Cuba, it was forbidden. If you get caught with the book, you go to jail because it
Oh
was
my.
forbidden. So what we used to do is to wrap it in clothing or stuff we send in big boxes. So we never send more than 5 books at a time. Our friend that is already passed away is Armando Nava. He was my drawing painting teacher, and he is the one who taught us how to make the embellish and how to hide it from authorities. And so it's for many years. In 2007, the law changed it, and now religion was accepted. In 2017, you're allowed, from that date to now, you are allowed to bring five books every trip. So we're trying to make big groups so we have more books, but five you can bring without any problem. But I didn't know that the changing the law, so we were bringing 50 last time, and the police stopped us and took us everything
Oh,
because it
no.
was forbidden. Yes, and 2 hours of questioning if we were against the state, if we were trying to make a revolution or what. Because
Oh,
I designed a couple shirts with the Che, and it says "Viva la revelación," "Viva the revelation," and it was kind of so people really didn't like it. Anyway,
the
I,
powers
at, the,
that be.
at the end it was good because the books end up with the Masons and the Rosicrucians in the island, and a lot of people would never be able to reach. So
Right.
all what I said was recorded and typewritten, so they knew the name of the people who the books were getting to. They look for him and they ask him to be the teacher of the Urantia book to this group of people.
Wow. Wonderful.
So it was great because I couldn't reach out these people who were in the government, but they were reached by the police.
You made a direct hit.
Yeah, yeah. So one of our friends in Pinar del Rio told us, "Don't worry, I'm in the party, and I will take care of those books. They are not gonna be destroyed. They are not gonna be taken away. And they will get to good hands." She told me 1 year before the books got to these people.
That's angel work, isn't it?
So
Human
we have a lot
angel.
of good friends who have helped us throughout all these adventures.
It helps to have people in high places.
Yes, yeah.
So
So
tell us what are your favorite projects right now in terms of book evangelism and getting the word out there? I know you're always engaged in something that's meaningful. So
well, since I'm retired now, I'm 60. I'm in the elder uh, ring now. So right now I'm slowing down. Not so many travels, so many trips. I'm into doing audio and video work for Urantia TV, and I started my own radio. It's Casamec Radio, and my radio is half music and half content of the Fifth Revelation. So we're doing a lot of audiobooks, including those of Angel Sanchez Escobar. We're making five of him. Of the secondary works that everybody know, of Harry McMullen, of Meredith Sprunger, to make the translations and also the audiobooks. So next book fairs, we're going to have the book and the audiobook together.
wow, wonderful.
Right now, we're working with seven, and one is Michel Clemach, The Story of Everything. And it has been a hit because we already passed the PDF, and a lot of people say, now I can say I read the book. This is a great digest, people really like it. So looking what people like, what how they can approach the book without this fear of not understanding, of laying down because it's too complicated, but to make it easy, to start with one document a week, like the most of the study groups in Zoom or StreamYard, in order to make a possible goal. three
Mhm.
years to read the whole book with no rush.
That's wonderful. It takes a while to digest it. So
Yes, right now we have 1,000 shows in the Urantia TV,
wow.
and
Wow.
our goal is to have 5,000 by a couple of years more, because right now we have 30 volunteers training how
Ah,
to do videos, how to make edition, and a lot of different items that they should be trained to start working. But the most are so eager to learn and to do stuff for Urantia TV. I think I can pass it next year. I will be out and someone will be doing it.
yay. Well, I hope you're never out, my friend. Do you notice that you get pushback from religious authorities or in the Spanish speaking world, or is that not as bad as it might be in English speaking countries?
In South America, yes. In Peru, they are really or in El Salvador, church has a lot of power. And yes, we have been banned for some places. Yes, yeah,
Okay.
especially because they said that it has not been premature. the permission from the Vatican,
Hmm.
um, and also because it doesn't follow their beliefs. Basically, it's the person, not the whole authority, but the person who is there. It's the same with our project, Blue Libraries. The plan is to have a book in every library in Mexico, and we were depending on the people working at the library, what they believe, they want to put it or not. But now we have a better approach. We go to the central library, and now the boss of all the libraries asks them to put it there. So
Uh-huh.
we're sure that book is there. It doesn't matter if it's a Jehovah Witness or recalcitrant Catholic or whatever. The book is gonna be there, you know. And
And
and now instead that we are place by place, that it will be a non-ending task. They call us when someone needs a new book because it was destroyed, or with the use it gets worn out. So we don't have to visit every town. They call us.
that's
So,
ideal. That is
yeah.
ideal. What role do you think J.J. Benitez played in this broader acceptance of the Urantia book in Spanish-speaking countries?
Well, the book was not known in Spanish because it was only in English. So if the 80% of the readership in Latin America came because of the Trojan horses.
80%.
Yeah, it's a big percentage, yes.
And that book is the Trojan horse, or how do you say it in Spanish? El Cabo
Caballo de Troya.
de. Okay, and it's about a time traveler, right? It's a fictional
It's a
book about.
traveler who goes to Jesus and starts, making a novel about this encounter with Jesus. And there are 10 books. So it has been from 1985, when he printed the first book here in Monterrey, till the last one in Spain, the number 11. And all this readership from 85 to 2022, it's a huge, and it's like three generations encompassed
Wow.
following him and knowing about your Rancher book.
And you've read both. Have you read all of his books or most of them?
None.
None of them. Wow. Okay, because I was going to ask you if they're, yeah, it's pretty well known, and he actually did admit that he took a lot of his material
Yes,
right
we
from.
always ask when he is coming, to visit. We always make questions about the Rancher book, and he has always said. Now he says he's one of my sources. I have thousands. This is one of my sources, but it's okay. He's saying it's one. It's
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Well, and 80%, I guess the numbers don't lie, right?
yeah, yeah. He's done a lot. Without him, I don't think it will spread that fast. So
Right.
it was a great job.
Yeah.
He didn't accept for many years. Maybe in the last 10 years, he has accepted that the book is one of the sources. Even though in his book, the Gospel of Saint John, he thanks the Urantia Book Foundation for allowing him to use the material.
Oh, that's great. So what other projects do you want to mention? We have a little bit of time left. Is there anything dear to your heart that you want people to know?
Well, we're doing spiritual vitamins, but
Oh,
now in different languages of Mexico. We have 64 languages in Mexico. So we're doing we already did the one in Mayan for all the Mayan Peninsula. Now we're working with the Mayo. The Mayo in Sinaloa is one of the larger tribes that still exist, and well, we want to translate the vitamins into Mayo. Next year is going to be with Arica, the Huichol tribes. So that's 1 year project to have them 365 at least translated into the native tongue. That has been good, so people get interested in reading the book.
and explain spiritual vitamins, my friend, because I don't think.
Yeah, some people, books are expensive in Latin America, so people don't read much. And if you're gonna give even free a book that is 2,000 pages, forget it, honey. It's too much. Not even free. So we need to motivate people to get interested in reading it. And I always tell them, if you read one paper and that paper changes your life, that was worth it.
Yes.
So we do little sentences. We started in '85 doing presentation cards, with this. Now they are rolled and they're really attractive to people because they believe that they're like lucky things, Chinese cookies stuff. People take it like that.
Yeah.
So it was, what is going to tell me? And usually they get the message they were needing. So
So they're little scrolls, right?
yeah,
And
the real scrolls with
right,
a
mess.
uh, simple sentence that really goes deep into the most of people, and they say, "I want to read more."
Yeah.
So these vitamins started in '85, but now they're very fancy because some people have make designs and they are printed, and well, they're really really fancy. But we used to have them in cards, then in typewriter at home, but now they're really really nice, and they really like to people, and that attracts to people to know more about it. To
Yeah,
know.
they're a great icebreaker, aren't they? At an expo, when you're talking, when you're standing at a booth talking about the Urantia book, and you tell people, "Well, take a spiritual vitamin and just see what the message is for you," and it really opens a door to start a conversation. They'll show you what they got, and then you can talk about it. And so it really is a good icebreaker for that, especially.
We used to have in different colors, and some people thought they were vitamins to eat.
I
So, or they were drugs. So I said, no, 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 thank you, thank you. So, in one of the fairs, came to join us Joy, and Joy started saying, "No, no son para comer, son para leer." So it started people, oh, okay, okay, I want it. But yes, we have a lot of experience with these vitamins. People that were even against the book. There was this anecdote in Bolivia. I came to the house of one of the readers. Her husband was really against the book, and so I never talked about the book with him. But I did a grill with carne asada, and I started my quesadillas. And so this guy came, and I say, "Why don't you read this?" He read it and started crying, and said,
oh,
For 3 months I was looking an answer of this, and now it is. And he started reading. So the magic quesadilla and the vitamins do mix.
the angels did the work there.
Oh yes, of
Yeah.
course, yeah. Because he really was pissed about the book.
Well, I want to, David, is there anything you want to ask Augustine? I know you guys are such dear and long friends, or just any comment you want to make as we're closing up here?
Only to say thank you, Augustine, for all that you're doing, all that you have done. I deeply appreciate what you're doing. It's making a difference for the revelation and for the world. So keep going.
Here, here.
I never thought that I would see any results of all this planting.
Mm.
I never even imagined, but now I can see a lot of the work done in this 40 years. I'm seeing something back. A lot of people who are starting study groups, who are doing different things. Now that we have so many volunteers for the different projects, that's great. I never thought it will be in my lifetime.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's so gratifying to see the fruits of your labor,
Yeah.
and to just even get to lightly participate in the harvest, which we know is coming at some point. We have faith in this book. It's so powerful and so beautiful. And
Right now we have people who are writing secondary works, and one of the things I'm translating or making audios about it. One of the things I would like to encourage in people is to go more mainstream, do more like any regular sci-fi or stuff like that, because otherwise we're writing for the readers.
right.
It's not worth it. We try to look those who are not reading to engage in looking more instead of repeating the same stuff like in the book. Let's go deeper, to the adventures, and there's so many things that we can exploit. That it's really worth it, and we have a lot of young writers in our community who can do a better job, and not don't restrain, go wild.
Have fun with this. Like the
Yeah.
great notice says, the act is ours and the consequences are God's, and God is big enough to hold all the consequences. We get the privilege of acting. And what a beautiful privilege that is. What a wonderful adventure that is. So thank you, my brothers. I love you so much. I think of you often. I wish you well. I pray for your success. I pray for this world, and I know that this book has the power to change people's lives, and that's what'll change the world. Transformed individuals will make a transformed world, and I know you agree with that, and that's what lights your fire. That's certainly what lights mine. So I love you dearly. Thank you.
Love you too. And
Thank you.
amigos, esperen por la transmisión en español con subtítulos en TV Urantia.
Yay.